Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 9th Annual Dennis Farm Symposium. My name is Lonnie Moore. I'm Vice President of Marketing for the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust and will be your Master of Ceremonies today. We have a very special program planned, so sit back and enjoy. I understand that we have attendees from California to Europe, so welcome everyone. And before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. You will be able to ask any questions that you have through our Q&A. So during the presentation, if you wouldn't mind typing in your questions, and we will address them at the end of our presentations. Okay, to start off, Keystone College is our educational partner. And every year, virtually or in person, we begin the symposium with a welcome address from Keynote College President, Dr. Tracy Brundage, Keystone's 11th president and 20th leader. Before becoming president, Dr. Brundage served as Keystone's provost and vice president for academic affairs. Since becoming president of Keystone College in 2018, Dr. Brundage has been deeply involved in implementing the college's updated strategic plan and the specific goals that support it. In addition, she has been particularly focused on developing initiatives to prepare students for career success through partnership, internships, experiential learning, and community partnerships, including their partnership with the Dennis Farm. Keystone College also directs the Keystone College Dennis Farm Student Docent Program. Dr. Brundage holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Gettysburg College, a Master of Education in Training and Development, and a doctorate in Workforce Education and Development, both from Pennsylvania State University. Under her leadership, by preparing students with the education and skills they need, Keystone College will continue its tradition of becoming an educational leader in the region, state, and nation for generations to come. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Tracy L Brundage. Dr. Brundage, welcome.
Thank you. That was an awesome introduction. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It certainly is a pleasure to welcome you to the 9th Annual Dennis Farm Symposium. Normally, as Lonnie said, we would be at Keystone College, but this year we are again virtual. And we've had the honor of hosting this meaningful event in person for the past, for 6 consecutive years. And of course, safety precautions as a result of COVID-19 have for the 2nd straight year preventing us from meeting in person. However, while our gathering today, it may be virtual, our enthusiasm to celebrate this enduring educational partnership with the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust has never been stronger. In fact, we are even more enthusiastic today as we celebrate the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust's 20th anniversary and the 115th birthday of its co-founder, the late Hope Dennis. And as always, we offer a special welcome to Denise Dennis, President and CEO of the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust. We have been so fortunate to work with you the last several years, and we look forward to continuing and growing our partnership in the years to come. We also welcome today's keynote speaker, Cassandra Coleman, Executive Director for the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semiquincentennial. And Cassandra is going to enlighten us on the Dennis Farm's critical role in the official celebration of our nation's 250th birthday on July 4th, 2026. Again, I'd like to give my heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you. The entire Keystone College community is proud to be a part of this great event, and thank you and enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you, President Brundage. It is now my pleasure to introduce Waycats, who will present the year in review. Wade is a Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust board member and the president and principal with South River Heritage Consulting, LLC. He is a registered professional archaeologist with over 35 years of historical research and cultural resource management experience. Mr. Katz holds a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology History and a Master of Arts in American History, both from the University of Delaware. He is a nationally and internationally recognized historian and historical archaeologist with research interests in the history of farmsteads and agricultural landscapes, urban development, military history and archaeology, environmental history, African American studies, and Middle Atlantic regional history and historic preservation. Ladies and gentlemen, Waycats.
Thank you, Lon. I apologize. I just muted myself, and that doesn't help anything when you're trying to do this. I appreciate the introduction, and my task this morning or this afternoon is to try to give you all a brief year in review of what the Charitable Land Trust has been working on. Obviously, with the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of things more virtually and not as much on the property as we would like to, but I'll kind of run through the year as we go. Just so you're aware, there are a lot of ongoing initiatives that we try to accomplish with the trust, and that includes the annual symposium like we're doing today. We also have the annual forum on racial understanding. We try to have tourism ability to visit the site on demand or as through request with on spring through the fall. We have a number of ongoing high school and university programs, and then other elements of things that we have been involved with, so that even though we may not be physically up on the land as much as we would like to be this year, or have you all up to see the farm this year, this does give people an opportunity to still see what the kind of work and that we're doing. And I'll talk a little bit about a number of these different things kind of as we go through the year. So as we met last year, we met virtually in October of 2020. And one of the major issues or things that we had accomplished last year was being able to receive a African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We are still in the process of working that through, and I'll talk a little bit about elements of that project as we're going along. But that's going to help us really kickstart the work on getting the house renovated and back to usable shape. In February, we had our Lene A. Moore Memorial Fund Forum, which we are now doing on we've held virtually now, I guess, this last year. The year prior to that, it was held at the Museum of the American Revolution. This was a really exciting forum, and I think worked very well for us to continue that dialogue and that discussion of fostering racial understanding. These were some of the moderator was Reverend Marshall Mitchell, and we had two excellent panelists in Alexandra Harris and Dr. Charles Gallagher. Also in February, Denise was able to present at the 18th Annual Underground Railroad and Black History Conference with Temple University, where she spoke about Sergeant Ralph Payne and his role in the 41st Regiment of U.S. Colored Troops during the Civil War, in particular his role in bringing the news of the freedom of African Americans in the United States to his position when he was stationed in Texas. This story will be talking a little bit about again in June, but in February it was when we were first speaking about it. Also in February, Denise was able to be on the podcast of AmRev 360 with R. Scott Stevenson, who is the president and CEO of the Museum of the American Revolution. We have a very good working relationship with the museum, and this was an opportunity to speak about African American history during the Revolution, in particular focused on the Gershom Prince Powderhorn, which you see in the right-hand corner there, which is on display currently at the museum and is a item from the family's history. Gershom was in the Battle of Wyoming on 3 July 1778, where he was killed, but his powderhorn was retrieved and it became part of the family collection. Also in February, we were able to be on another Zoom call, virtual discussion, Facebook Live program with Secretary of Agriculture Russell Redding for the state of Pennsylvania. We also have an ongoing and very long-standing relationship with Secretary Redding. You can see him there when we used to do live events at the Pennsylvania Farm Show with Daryl and Lon, where he visited our booth. Interestingly, also in February was a really exciting event at Westchester Friends School, where a third grade class for part of a Black History Month project helped to raise $150 for the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust to help support the ongoing programming that we're doing. And in part of that, you see in the right-hand slide, we had several students who were part of a recognition of playing fiddles, which was or violins, which was kind of in recognition of Prince Perkins and his role in the Susquehanna County in the 19th century as an excellent violin and fiddle player. Denise also was a speaker for the National Women in Agricultural Association's Women History Month program, where she spoke about the farm. Again, in March, she was a virtual speaker with the African American Genealogy Group, so that we are being able to get our message out to a lot of different organizations nationwide. Sometimes through virtual presentations like this, you reach a lot more people than it had been in person. In May, the Susquehanna County Commissioners were able to come up and tour the farm, so that even though we are in a pandemic, we have done some events that have people coming to and being able to actually walk to and visit the farm. In June, there also was a meeting with the Philadelphia Media Group and America 250 PA. Both came up to the farm to visit. So that, again, we're trying to raise awareness and get the level of information out there that we can. This helped result in Lon being interviewed locally on a TV station, so that also went out. Also in June, there was a follow-up to that story about Sergeant Ralph Payne that was published in the local Susquehanna County Transcript, which followed up on the story that had come out in February about Sergeant Payne and his role in Texas. June also was the opportunity for the planning meeting with the Dennis Farm team and along with architect, structural engineer, archaeologist, stonemason, in preparation for that National Trust project that would be looking at the house. And so these are local firms. A couple of these are actually local to the area, as well as Pennsylvania-based firms. So this is a real exciting opportunity to finally get that project kicked off and moving. And that is actually going to be the renovation work on the foundation. It will be starting within the next week or so. July was also an opportunity for the Charitable Land Trust to be a featured presentation about the farm at the Brooklyn, PA Historical Society's annual meeting. And then in August, we were able to do a little bit of archaeological work in advance of the project of the renovation restoration of the foundation. And this was archaeology that would help us understand how that house is put together and what the exterior of the foundation looks like. At the same time, this also helped us gather some more material culture about the history of this site and the kind of day-to-day life events that you could see through the objects that are left behind. 2021 has also been an opportunity for the farm to, or the trust to actually review and revise its new brochure. So you see that on the right-hand side. And also a new on-site visitor's guide has been developed. And so you'll see both of these coming into use at the end of this year now and moving into the next couple of years. So that's kind of a quick overview of what it is we've been up to this year and how things are going along. I would invite any of you who maybe haven't been up to the farm to consider coming and touring the farm. As you heard earlier from Lon, Keystone College is our source for docents and a place to contact for information about coming up and actually visiting and walking on the farm. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning, and I'll pass this back over to Lon.
Thank you, Wade. Really appreciate that. A phenomenal presentation. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Cassandra Coleman, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semiquincentennial, also known as America 250 PA. Cassandra spent a lifetime in public service, most recently serving in the administration of Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf. Prior to that, she served with United States Senator Bob Casey and also made history as the youngest serving female mayor in the country when she was sworn in at the age of 20. Cassandra is a proud 2010 graduate of King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, where she earned a degree in political science and resides in her hometown of Exeter with her son, Jimmy IV. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you so much, Lonnie, and thank you for having me here today. It is truly an honor. And as Lonnie mentioned, I'm Cassandra Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of America 250 PA, and we are the Commonwealth's commission to organize and plan all of the programs, projects, and events around the 250th anniversary of the United States in 2026. This is truly a historic moment in time and truly a historic commission. And America 250 PA really hopes to engage every Pennsylvanian in every county as we educate, preserve, innovate, and celebrate. I have spent the majority of my career thus far traveling this amazing Commonwealth and meeting so many amazing Pennsylvanians and seeing some remarkable places. It was just 2 short years ago that I had the distinct honor of meeting Denise Dennis. And it was our mutual friend in George Stark, who you will hear from shortly, that said, Cassandra, you need to know about the Dennis Farm and you need to meet Denise Dennis. It was from that first meeting with Denise that, and that brief short interaction that I recognized immediately how important the Dennis Farm is and its story is to both Pennsylvania and United States history. One of the most important things that we here at America 250 PA hope to accomplish in this role and with this initiative is to be able to not only tell and retell the full history of the Commonwealth, but to use this platform to be able to lift up stories that may not be so widely told. Those untold stories that are so important, yet sometimes are left out of the history books. And stories like the Dennis Farm, treasures like the Dennis Farm. Under our preserve pillar of America 250 PA, we hope to install bronze permanent semi-quincentennial bells in commemoration of the 250th anniversary at locations across the Commonwealth. Locations to show and highlight their important significance to Pennsylvania's story. That being said, America 250 PA, in partnership support with Coterra Energy, are so proud to announce that the first America 250 PA semi-quincentennial bell will be installed at the Dennis Farm. We are so grateful for the support of Coterra and the partnership from day one with Denise and the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust. We now have our semi-quincentennial bell announcement video that we would love to share with you.
When I think of land that I love, I think of America, land that I love, but I also think of a very specific place, the Dennis Farm. My name is Denise Dennis, and I am president of the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust. But more importantly, I'm a direct descendant of people who settled the Dennis Farm. My ancestors, free African Americans, came to Northeast Pennsylvania from New England in 1793, purchased land, and carved a farm out of the wilderness. And they did this at a time when only 10% of African Americans were free people.
As part of our Preserve mission of America 250 PA, we are hoping to install up to 7 commemorative bronze semi-quincentennial bells across the Commonwealth at historically significant locations.
And when we heard of the opportunity for this bell, we recognized that the Dennis Farm would be a wonderful location. Given the farm's focus on history, culture, and its ability to storytell, We were excited to partner with America 250 PA to make certain that this historical treasure here in Northeast Pennsylvania was able to house one of the bells.
The Semiquincentennial bell represents the liberty and freedom our ancestors fought for, including 2 of my ancestors who rest in the family cemetery on the farm. So it is especially significant to have a bell on this place. In spite of all, my ancestors had faith, believed in the promise of the new nation, and lived that promise against great odds. Nothing could be more appropriate than a semi-quincentennial bell on the Dennis farm, and nothing could be more representative of the diversity of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States of America. The bell on the farm shows how far we have come as a nation, at a time when we wrestle with how far we still have to go in order to achieve true racial equality. When people come to the farm and reflect on the lives of my ancestors in this beautiful place and contemplate the meaning of the bell, it will give them hope.
This land has remained in the hands of an African American family from the time that George Washington was president of this country, and has stayed in our family's hands ever since. My name is Daryl Gore. I am a 7th generation direct descendant of Prince Perkins. Prince was an African American Revolutionary War veteran. He used the money that he earned fighting in the Revolutionary War to purchase land. Prince's daughter married Henry Dennis, and Henry and his father, James Dennis, purchased this lower portion of land and has remained in the family's hands ever since.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Moore, and I'm a 7th generation direct descendant of Prince and Judith Perkins. In 2001, the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust was founded by the CEO, Denise Dennis, and my great-aunt Hope to protect and preserve the natural resources of the land. We want to turn this into an educational resource for students and scholars and others that are interested in this type of rare history. Couldn't really understand it as a youngster, but as I grew older and understood the history of the farm and how significant the role the family was to the community here at large, and really what it means to just everybody in general. I mean, there hasn't been much history that speaks about free African Americans dating back as far as 1793. It really shows about how the country was developed. And to now be standing on a piece of land that was my ancestors is just, it's awesome. I mean, at the top we have a cemetery where our ancestors are even buried.
This is the cemetery on the Dennis farm. All of our early ancestors are buried in this spot, but there are also others who are friends of the family who are buried in this cemetery. We're aware that there's at least 20 to 30, maybe even more interments in this property of African Americans. We believe a lot of these African Americans came during their journey from the South on the Underground Railroad. They ended up settling here, or they ended up dying here. But all of our ancestors, Prince Perkins, Henry Dennis, James Dennis, Angeline, Judith Perkins, are buried in this cemetery. This is kind of our most sacred site. For myself, Lonnie, and my sister Denise, this is where we know that we're with family. Without these people, I would not be. And to look at these stones, to look at these woods, to look at these gravestones and know that these people are why I am. It's an indescribable feeling of belonging and being that for many African Americans is not possible. Deep down inside, it's always been a source of pride for my family. That my great-grandfather reminded us at all times that we were free.
On behalf of the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust, and my family, I would like to thank the America 250 PA Commission, particularly Cassandra Coleman and Joyce Walker, for honoring us with this beautiful bell. We are most appreciative. Finally, the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust has been the recipient of a matching grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities to restore the farmhouse and transform it to a museum so that all can come and learn this extraordinary history. We hope to have the museum up and running by 2026 when our nation celebrates our 250th anniversary. We are still raising funds to meet the matching grant, so if you would like to make a contribution, go to thedennisfarm.org. That's thedennisfarm.org. Thank you, and let freedom ring.
Right. Thank you, Cassandra and George, who serves on our advisory board, for honoring the Dennis Farm with America 250 PA's semi-quincentennial bell, and for honoring our ancestor, Prince Perkins, and for your wonderful presentations.
Thank you. And I would like to, I was just going to say, I would like to turn it over to George just for a moment to
Sure.
talk to Tara's support of the bell.
Again, my name is George Stark, and I'm with what might be known as Cabot Oil and Gas. But again, as we talk about the historical nature of the farm, Cabot ourselves has just come through a merger. So when you hear the name Coterra, you will now know that that is the new company that is Cabot. And in our name is land. If you know the definition of terra, we respect and want to responsibly be on the land. And from a Coterra standpoint, I couldn't think of a better opportunity of partnering Miss Dennis and Miss Coleman, because so much is happening there. And you heard me say it: culture, storytelling, the whole idea of education, 200-year history, that we can have a small part in making certain that this farm is the first recipient of these commemorative bells. We want that bell, as Ms. Dennis says, to ring loudly. We want folks to understand what's happening in this piece of not just Susquehanna County or Pennsylvania, but in this part of the world. And we want people to come to see. And I'm blessed to actually have my own version with me. I don't go far without it. And I'm a friend of the farm. And I'm so excited from a Coterra standpoint that we can have that opportunity to ensure that the first commemorative bell would be positioned and stationed at the Dennis Farm. So hats off to Madam Dennis and Cassandra. Thank you for all you're doing to make certain that the Dennis Farm moves forward. I'm going to hand it back to you, Cassandra.
Thanks, George. And it is also an honor of mine to be able to announce that Congressman Fred Keller issued a congressional citation declaring today, October 6th, Prince Perkins Day, in recognition of the farm and this historic bell announcement, as well as the Pennsylvania legislative delegation, sponsored by Representative Fritz and Senator Baker. They also declared today Prince Perkins Day in the state of Pennsylvania, recognizing the unique contributions that Prince Perkins and his descendants have had on northeastern Pennsylvania. So I do have these citations and these plaques to get to you, Denise, or someone from your family, but thank you again for your partnership, and I look forward to working with all of you over the next couple of years. So thank you again for having me.
Wow. Thank you again to both Cassandra and George. We're deeply honored. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who has been near and dear to me my whole life, And as the lyrics from the R&B 1979 classic sung by Sister Sledge goes, we are family, we are family. Our president, Denise Dennis.
I have a piece of hoops in my on. You know, Cassandra, I've seen the video several times now, and everyone knows I'm big. I'm tearing up here. I teared up, and I'm trying to fight back tears, but I thank you. I thank George. I know, George, I'm not always easy, but you have stuck with us. Thank you so much for telling Cassandra about us. And Cassandra's my home girl. You know, we're from the same part of the state, and I'm just, you know, I'm really a pretty cool character, but right now I'm very emotional seeing that. And Prince Perkins Day, I mean, I just remember, you know, my granddad, my daddy told me about Prince Perkins. And can you imagine if I calculated, if someone had told this to Prince Perkins, that would be like someone telling us in the year 2221, you are still going to be remembered. That is so, as the kids say, awesome. So now I've completely gone off script, but I did manage to thank Cassandra and George. I want to thank the state legislature. I want to thank the congressional delegation. And now I'll go on for what my presentation is going to be about. My presentation is going to be a tribute to my late great aunt Hope Dennis. She and I were very close, and I know she was concerned about the farm and believing that I could pull this off, and we're still working on it, was a great turning over for her. So without her, we wouldn't be here, but she's part of a long line of really incredible people. So it's a tribute to her, but also it tells how the very baby steps we took when we were first putting the trust together as we celebrate our 20th anniversary. So Phil, I will be quiet now and, you know, let her rip. "8 years before she passed away, our aunt, Hope Dennis, Prince Perkins' great-great-granddaughter, asked me, 'Do you have any ideas about what we should do with the farm?' Then she paused, looking at me confidently, with warmth in her ever-alert brown eyes, and said emphatically, 'I don't want the farm to go out of the family on my watch.' A fifth-generation member of the Perkins-Dennis family, Hope was born in 1906 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania's Wyoming Valley, the youngest of 5 children. Her father, Sumner Dennis, was born on the farm in 1866 and moved to Wilkes-Barre in 1886 at age 20. The population of Wilkes-Barre at the turn of the century was 50,000, of which 700 were African American. In 1900, 90% of African Americans lived in the South, worked on farms, and did not own their own homes. According to the 1900 census, the majority of Black children did not have access to an education, and only 3.6% of African Americans lived in the Northeast United States. On her father's side, though, Hope's family was the oldest documented African American family in Northeast Pennsylvania, having arrived from New England as free people in the late 1700s. Her parents owned their own home, and her father and his 2 older brothers owned the Dennis farm in Susquehanna County. She and her 4 siblings grew up in the city's Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, which was founded by her maternal great-grandfather and 2 other African American men in 1848. They were educated in white schools as their parents had been in the 19th century and lived in a white neighborhood. The 700 African Americans in Wilkes-Barre were a progressive community, as you can see in the articles of this April 1900 edition of Wilkes-Barre's African American newspaper. As her 2 older sisters, Edith and Marion, had done, after high school, Hope left Wilkes-Barre for Bloomsburg State Normal School, where she was the only African American student in her class. In their written comments in Hope's senior yearbook in 1925, her classmates paint a portrait of her that brings young Hope Dennis to life. They describe her entertaining girls in the dorm by playing the ukulele, allude to her droll sense of humor enlivening classes, her prowess in English class, and her talents as a writer and artist. In fact, Hope's professional goal was to be a commercial artist, and she submitted portfolios to companies, but opportunities were few for women, let alone African American women. This is one of her drawings. Her signature, H.L. Dennis, is visible under the little girl's shoes. In the yearbook, one classmate wrote, "Dear Hope, how could I forget one of the shining stars of BSNS? Miss Mason was always telling us about you and the wonderful write-ups you did for the YW. Your artwork here has also won you fame." Another classmate wrote, "I shall always remember you, Hope, as one of those unusual people who was brilliant. You were a joy to the faculty members, not to mention the students with whom you worked. I only wish I had 1/4 of your talent and originality." Another student from Scranton was succinct. "Dear Hope, I shall always remember you as the girl with the highest IQ in our whole class." The biographical synopsis under Hope's yearbook picture begins, "Behold one of the most original young ladies in our class. She can sing, she can study, she can play the uke. Honest, she can do most anything." After graduating from Bloomsburg State at age 18, Hope accepted a teaching position in Gary, Indiana. Northeast Pennsylvania didn't hire African American teachers then, and even in Philadelphia, black teachers could teach only in elementary schools in black neighborhoods. In 1906, the year Hope was born, the United States Steel Corporation founded the city of Gary, Indiana, as home for its new plant, Gary Works. Within 26 years of the city's founding, the steel industry had attracted workers from throughout the country, including African Americans from the South. By 1930, the city had grown to a population of 100,000, of which African Americans comprised 17.8%. Rather than accept black students at white high schools, the Gary City Council appropriated funds to construct a new school, Roosevelt High School, specifically for African American students that would be, quote, equal to existing high schools, as well as having qualified teachers and staff, end of quote. In other words, separate but equal, Midwestern style. This was copied by other cities and called the Gary system. After moving to the Midwest, Hope earned another degree in education from the University of Michigan and a master's in psychology from Northwestern University, and enjoyed a long career as a guidance counselor and English teacher at Roosevelt High School, retiring in the 1970s. Long before Dr. Bernard Watson became chairman of the William Penn Foundation, the Pennsylvania Convention Center, and the Barnes Foundation, he was a student, teacher, and administrator at Gary's Roosevelt High School, where he knew Hope Dennis. In his biography, Colored, Negro, Black, Chasing the American Dream, Watson describes the high school as extraordinary. He writes, "I loved going to Roosevelt because it was the envy of most people in the city. For Negroes, it was the pinnacle. Even the white schools envied Roosevelt. The school's success was attributed largely to its dynamic principal, H. Theodore Tatum." The picture on the left is of Mr. and Mrs. Tatum visiting the Dennis farm. Many of you have heard of the Green Book. Well, the Dennis farm wasn't on the Green Book, but back in the days when hotels and motels did not welcome or even allow African Americans to stay there, African Americans found places they knew where they could visit people during the summer. There were some Black-owned resorts, but in other places it was just people who opened their homes. And in the summer, when the Dennises summered at the Dennis farm, their friends knew that that was a place where they could come and enjoy gracious living. In his book, Watson describes Hope Dennis as, quote, a counselor, English teacher, fine writer, and an absolute magician with students, end of quote. In his inscription to her copy of his biography, he wrote, to Hope Dennis, friend, mentor, and master teacher. In the 1940s, Hope was on the staff of Dr. Charles Johnson at Fisk University's Institute for Race Relations in Nashville, Tennessee, which was founded in 1942. The goal of the Institute, the first think tank to be located at a predominantly Black institution, was to improve race relations in the South and the nation, something sadly we're still working on at this moment in time. This is a letter wrote Hope to her parents from Fisk. Her name, as secretary of the Institute, is printed on the stationery along with Dr. Johnson's. The Institute's attendees gathered there for 3 weeks in July from throughout the United States. The Institute was considered groundbreaking not only because it was the first such institution in the South, but because it was interracial. This is a photo of the renowned attorney Charles Hamilton Houston, who was one of the participants in the Institute. Houston was Thurgood Marshall's mentor, laid the groundwork for the 1954 Brown v. Board decision, but unfortunately did not live to see it. Hope described the Institute of Race Relations in an article published in Education magazine in January 1946, which we've posted on our website. This is a letter from the executive director of the Pittsburgh Urban League, who'd also participated in the Institute one summer, and it's addressed to Hope at the Dennis Farm. When she left the Institute, before returning to Gary, Hope visited her family at the farm, and they forwarded this letter to her. You can see the Kingsley, PA postmark on it, August 25th, 1945. The stamp with the V for victory says, "Win the war." Japan surrendered 1 week later, September 1st, 1945, ending World War II. In the late 1940s and early 50s, Hope was the producer of a radio program, While We're Young, in Hammond, Indiana. She also took a sabbatical to teach at Purdue University's Hammond campus. In 1964, Hope did postgraduate work at Columbia University in New York. During her long, interesting life, she also traveled to Europe and Africa, riding a camel and visiting the pyramids in Egypt, and talking with the Maasai in Kenya. This is a postcard of Nefertiti she sent me from Cairo. In the late 1970s, Hope moved to Harrisburg to take care of her sister Edith, who later passed away in 1980. In 1996, Hope bought a condo in Philadelphia to be near her nieces and nephews. I share all of this to give you an idea of what a truly remarkable person our co-founder, Hope Dennis, was. When she asked me whether or not I had any ideas of what we could do for the farm, I knew she had given it great thought. She was pleased with this article, which I'd been asked to write for the National Urban League's Opportunity Journal in 1998, and I think it influenced her. Also, we called each other kindred spirits. Fortunately, I did have an idea of what we could do with the farm. Hope approved the idea, but she also wanted to see a plan and made me promise that even as a historical site, the property would continue to be called the Dennis Farm, the cemetery would be called the Perkins Dennis Cemetery, and that the house would serve as a historic site or a museum only. In the 1980s, I'd worked as communications officer for the Graduate School of Fine Arts at the University of Pennsylvania, now the Design School. These are photos that show what our farmhouse looked like in the 1980s, around that time. One of the departments in the graduate school was historic preservation. So I wrote about historic preservation projects and learned that the age of our farmhouse made it historically significant. So, my first step toward developing a plan to preserve the farm was to call Penn's Historic Preservation Department. They advised me to reach out to the Bureau of Historic Preservation in Harrisburg. Contacting the executive director of the Bureau, Brenda Barrett, was step 2. Ms. Barrett called me back with the surprising news that she'd spoken with a consultant for the Endless Mountains Heritage Region who knew about and had actually visited the Dennis farm. The Endless Mountains Heritage Region wanted to include the farm as one of their regional heritage sites, but they'd been advised that the owner was an elderly woman who didn't want to be bothered. This is on the left. You'll see a 1990 article about the Perkins Dennis Cemetery in a Susquehanna County newspaper. The consultant, Elizabeth Watson, was excited that the family wanted to preserve the farm and eager to talk with me. Step 3 was to call Elizabeth Watson. We hit it off immediately, and she offered to be our consultant pro bono. Elizabeth gave me this copy of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region's Management Action Plan on the right, and I gave it to Hope, explaining that the farm could be a member of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region. Hope read the plan thoroughly and was satisfied that we could create a heritage site at the farm successfully. The project energized her, and she began to collect articles about historic homes. Elizabeth Watson came to meet and talk with Hope, too. In November 2000, Elizabeth and I drove to the farm, where we met with Betty Smith of the Susquehanna County Historical Society, whom I'd contacted way back in the 1980s, Robert Templeton of the Susquehanna County Department of Planning and Development, Patrick Foltz of Preservation Pennsylvania, and Bob Velliker of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region. Then we had a meeting at the Historical Society in Montrose, where I expressed the details of my dream, the vision for the farm. Each person at that meeting agreed to help. In 2001, I wrote this article for the Swarthmore College magazine about our plans for the farm. After Hope passed away, I found a copy of it in her large wooden jewelry box. Also in 2001, we applied for a Pennsylvania Heritage Parks Program grant through the Endless Mountains Heritage Region to have a feasibility study done. Betty Smith, Pat Foltz, and Robert Templeton wrote letters of support. This is Templeton's letter on the left. In September 2001, exactly 20 years ago, we received this letter from the Endless Mountains Heritage Region announcing that we'd been awarded the grant, our first grant. Next, we had a call for papers for firms to write the feasibility study. That led us to Waycats, who wrote this study. Once we began working with Wade, whose expertise and friendship have been invaluable, we were off and running. And since then, we haven't looked back. Our beloved aunt, Hope Dennis, passed away peacefully in 2006, as recorded in our family Bible. Here we are, reading my then newly published book in 2002, when Hope was 96. Hope's spirit is with us always, giving us hope as we proceed. Thank you, Aunt Hope, and happy, happy birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there, right? Thank you, Denise. That was well done, and I hope that everybody enjoyed that presentation. Next, I would like to introduce Daryl Gore, who was my first cousin, also our Vice President of Development and Manager for the Farmhouse Restoration Project, who has an appeal to make.
Thank you, Lonnie, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to make this shameless plug. As you know, we still need to remind everyone of our goal to raise funds to convert that farmhouse, which is in the back of my image, to convert it into the museum that looks more like the farmhouse on the left than the farmhouse on the right. Our goals to restore and convert the farmhouse into a museum have not changed. As participants of today's program, each of you will receive a beautiful electronic fundraising brochure with information about the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust, the options that you have for giving, and photographs including a couple of the artifacts that will be displayed in the museum. We ask that you share it with anybody and any organization that might possibly contribute to our effort. Because of the pandemic, and it's unfortunate, the clock is ticking on us. We're more than a year behind in our fundraising goals because of the pandemic. So we're looking for people to make as generous a contribution as possible to help us reach this goal. To be honest, we need your help. So please read the brochure. Do what you can. Consider everything that you can. Dennis Farmhouse, we're trying to convert it into the museum. That was our On Hope's goal, to make this a museum that everyone can share. But we need your help. The good news, and we finally have some really good news in that regard, that we finally received the first permits to start work on the farmhouse, or those new permits are imminent, and we expect to be starting work to repair and restore the stone foundation of the farmhouse before year's end. But again, it costs money, and while we have a grant to help us, we still have to turn that farmhouse from the one that you see on the right into the one that you see on the left. And we need all of your help. So please consider giving and sharing with anyone that you know who may be a possible donor, and consider giving for us. Again, please consider giving. I'm just very happy to let you know that work on the farmhouse is we're finally putting not hammer to nail, but mortar to stone, which is a beginning. We're starting at the bottom and we're working our way up. And I'm very excited that they have trusted me to oversee the restoration process. And I'm hoping that all of you will consider helping us meet this goal. Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you so much for participating today. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Daryl. For those of you who may have not heard in the beginning when I stated that if you had any questions that you could type them into the Q&A box. We will now answer some of those questions you've been writing in that box. And I'm just going to go to one of them that I just happened to view. Let me see if I can get back over there. All right. And I lost it, but I know that one of them I'm going to paraphrase. Phil, it seems as though I may have lost the Q&A feature there, but one of them had stated it was an anonymous question, anonymous person who said that, how do you think that your ancestors would feel now about hearing about this type of recognition? And I'll allow my family to address it as well, but I can imagine there would be a lot of dancing taking place if they had the ability to do so. A lot of playing of the fiddle,
Yes.
and just a great sense of pride that, still to this day, that we have a family who has managed to be good stewards of the property and land, and trying to do our best to make this little known treasure here in Pennsylvania known to everybody, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country, and share and embrace and the pride and joy that we all share today.
Lonnie, here's a question from Mickey Weaver. Do you
Okay.
guys have plans for youngsters to come and get hands-on experience with farming as an educational project?
Want me to get that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Yes, absolutely. And also I want to reiterate what Lonnie said. I think our family would be delighted about what we're doing, but also, the Dennises, they would also be telling us, be modest, be serious, keep it all on the right level. They were really fine people, that's all I can say. But yes, children, young people from elementary level to high school through college, we want young people to come to the farm. And there will be interactive exhibitions in the museum. For instance, young people will be able to push a button in the museum, and Prince Perkins, probably sounding a lot like Lonnie or Daryl, and Prince Perkins will tell them his story. And that will be true of all the historical figures. There'll also be little boxes where some of the artifacts we have, they'll be under like a little like in a little box, and they'll be able to lift the lid and look inside and see the object through plexiglass. So yes, we do want it to be an interactive museum. And then of course, anybody who's visited the farm now, the farm is really an open air museum as it is. So you can walk around and see things from the Perkins site to the foundation of the barn walls. And there's signs that explain to everyone what they're looking at. So yes, we really want, if you're going to improve race in this country, you have to teach them when they're very young. You have to start changing negative perceptions and misconceptions when people are young. And so the earlier you can bring them to the farm, I've had students, we've had students, even college students say to me, I've never heard of anything like this before. And this has been African-American students, Asian students, Hispanic students, all of them find this story extraordinary. No one told them a history like this. So we have a great chance right here in Pennsylvania to really do something that's good for the whole nation. The Dennis family and the people in that community, that small community in the Endless Mountains, set an example centuries ago that is an example for America today. And I'm so glad that we're highlighting it. And one of my friends said, I've never heard anyone talk about Pennsylvania the way you do. You think it's a great state. Well, I have reasons for feeling that way.
So there's another question from Mike Idris. Do you anticipate having any costumed interpretation in the museum?
Daryl and Lonnie, do you want to answer that?
Sure.
Let Daryl go.
We'd be more than happy to dress up as Prince Perkins, when necessary, especially if it's going to raise funds for her. But I also wanted to piggyback on Denise's comments on the offerings. The farm to this day is 153 acres of open air classroom. Every time I go there, and we go there several times a year, I find new things to see. The new wildlife that I've seen. My last visit, I found a box turtle, which I'd never seen before. And previously this summer, I saw on my way through the area a bald eagle, which was very cool. The farm is a very cool place right now to go out and see nature, be a part of nature, kind of see a little bit of what it was like for Prince Perkins and Henry Dennis and our ancestors to live on that land. So yes, well, while right now there's nothing specifically available, it's still a great place to see. You can come see our apple orchards. You can come see our wildlife. You can come walk our woods. Great place to be.
And the wetlands.
Yes, and the wetlands.
We're still looking for a study of the wetlands.
Yes.
We have a wetlands and haven't been interfered with.
Right.
Yeah, there's a great nature reserve up there, and it's an unofficial nature reserve, you know. I don't want anyone sending cards and letters saying they're not officially a nature reserve, but
No.
there's a lot of nature to see up there.
I know, and it's not a specific reserve, but there's still a lot of nature to be a part of when you go there.
Yeah, the deer scurry up the hill when we come. They say, oh, here are these pesky people again. And they go up beyond the cemetery.
Yeah.
This is what John, hi, John, I know you're out there. John Arnone, our caretaker, he sees the wildlife on his camera monitors that we have on the farm. So he gets to see the actual video of all the critters up there.
Including bears.
This question might be best directed to Cassandra. Question is, will each bell be designed specifically for the location it's placed at?
So each bell will be, yes, will be unique to the location, depending upon what will be inscribed on the bell, the armature of the bell, the location of the bell. So yes, as of right now, this is our only bell that we have on the books to be installed. We're working on, like I said, an additional probably 5 to 6 others across the Commonwealth.
And this is a two-part question. Thank you, Cassandra. First part, you probably answered already, but when do you estimate construction can begin? And when does the fundraising campaign end?
We have until 2023 or 24. Right? Yeah, I think 24, 5 years we have. We received it in 2019. So, you know, it's as Daryl said, we are behind in our fundraising goals. So construction begins when the money comes in. I mean, you can't build without cash. So because of the grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, we're able to start the work on the foundation, which is beginning any day now. And the reason Daryl alluded to the permits is because we were waiting for the permits and this took some time. So the foundation will be there, and as the money comes in, we'll build up and up and up the artifacts we have. But we have till 2024 to meet our goal. And we really want this up and running in time for the Semiquincentennial. Even when we were awarded the grant, the chairman of the NEH alluded to the Dennis Farm as being a significant location for our nation's 150th anniversary from their perspective. So we really do need your help. Fundraising is not the fun part of this job, but it has to be done. And you know, we really are committed and we really want to see this happen. And also, once people can come to the museum, that's where when you arrive at the farm, you'll learn the story, you'll see the artifacts, you'll be in the house where they live. Then when you go out and explore the grounds, it'll be even more meaningful. Not that it isn't meaningful now, because as Daryl said, even now there's so much to learn from and enjoy on the property. But once we have that museum, that'll just be fantastic, especially for young people.
Here's another question for Cassandra. What is the bell made of?
It's bronze, and it will be cast here in the Commonwealth outside of Philadelphia.
Neat. And a question about geography. How far a drive is the farm from Wilkes-Barre or Philadelphia?
Cassandra, do you want to take the Wilkes-Barre one? I would, but you know, you go ahead.
I think it's probably about 45 to 55 minutes from where I am, which is Luzerne County. I'm right in Greater Pittston, so probably a total of roughly an hour.
Yeah.
And it's about 2.5 hours from Philadelphia.
Unless it's Daryl that's driving, it might be 2 hours and 10 minutes, but
And one more, how can I expand my students' how can I expand my students' connection with the farm beyond the donation that was initially earned by their Underground Railroad study last year? That's
That
from
is,
Regina.
excuse me, that is definitely from the Westchester Friends School. Hello, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. We were so thrilled. You're our youngest donors.
Yes.
Well, you were all invited to take a field trip to the farm, and we will meet and greet you ourselves. And we'll take you over to Keystone College too. So you can keep your connection. If you would like any of us to come to Westchester Friends School, anyone on our team would be happy to come and talk with you and meet with you in person. And if any of your teachers have a project they would like to initiate with us, we will partner with you in a project. If you have any ideas, whether it's about wildlife, about history, even about playing the fiddle, anything you would like to partner with us about, we will be happy to do it with you. We've had partnerships with colleges and universities, and you would be our first elementary school.
Nice. Lonnie, that's the last question so far.
Okay. Well, great. I'd also just like to recognize, I don't know if I had a chance to do so in the beginning, one of our other Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust Board members, Patty Jepson, who is also a professor of archaeology, I believe, at Cheney State University. So Patty, I see you over there. I just want to make sure that we recognized you. Good to see you.
And before we close, can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
Before, but I also want to thank everybody. I want to thank our Dennis Farm team. I want to thank Tracy, Dr. Tracy Brundage, and our friends at Keystone College. I want to thank my good friend George again. Thank you, George. I want to thank Cassandra again, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And again, Cassandra, you're my homegirl, you know. You're my Wyoming Valley buddy. And so it makes this all the more meaningful to me. I can't tell you how many times in my lifetime I made that ride from Luzerne County to the farm in Susquehanna County. So that this is from someone from Wyoming Valley just makes it even more special. So I'm hoping I thanked everybody, our team, our friends, and all of you out there who signed in. I will now zip my lip, which, as you all know, is very difficult for me. And I will turn it back to Mr. Lonnie Moore.
Well, thank you, Denise. And thank you again to everybody who was with us today. And on behalf of the Dennis Farm Charitable Land Trust, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We hope you've had, that you've been inspired by what's been presented to you today, and you've heard and will continue to support our efforts. If you haven't visited the farm already, we invite you to come and experience it for yourself. Don't forget, we need your help to raise funds to transform the farmhouse into a museum for all to learn from and enjoy in its rich history. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.